Hi, I'm Sean Parsons, and I'm running for Athens City School Board. At the last school board meeting, which was this past Thursday on August 17th, there were a few notable things that happened that I think you would like to know about. At the beginning of the meeting, Dr. Gibbs wanted the school board to start talking about the sixth grade and where that might end up, because in his words, it sets off a sort of domino effect about everything else that's going to follow. In my last video, I mentioned that moving the sixth grade to the middle school is not just as simple as fitting them into that space, though the architect doesn't really see that as being a problem. It's more of a programming and structural challenge, and from listening to teachers and administrators, a successful move of the sixth grade to the middle school is going to require moving to a true middle school model. And now that seems to be more of an important part of the conversation, I'll get out a video to you discussing the difference between middle school and junior high models in case you're not aware of what that means. 4 of the 5 board members at this meeting voiced their support for moving the 6th grade to the middle school. There was one board member that wanted some more time and details and information about what that would look like and how that would work. And the building leadership for the middle school were asked to kind of develop a plan for implementing this. And in order to really develop this plan for moving to a middle school model and the 6th grade into the building, it's going to take some time. So it might be more of just a feasibility report that comes out of this rather than a very long-term plan. There are a few reasons that the 6th grade is important. We have roughly 200 children per grade level. And if the board went with option 1 or the single campus, building space or not building space for 200 children needs to be taken into account. I'm going to touch more on option 1 here in a minute, but if the school board went with 2 K-5s, then the 6th grade would be moving to the middle school. If the board looked at the option 2.5 or option 4 that we talked about in last video, our 6th grade, as that plan proposed, would be at the Plains Elementary, and an addition would need to be built unless the 6th grade moved to the middle school. So on to the big thing that happened at the meeting. All 5 board members voiced their support for the single campus option. They didn't vote on this, and the architect is going to start working on possible designs and costs. He has a civil engineer who's on retainer that's going to come out and look to see about fitting 2 or 3 different buildings on that Ridges property. And that Ridges property, again, is being offered to the school district at no cost from the university. Before I break down things that were tossed around in this discussion, I'm going to circle back to what option 1 is. At the conclusion of the steering committee, it was suggested considering an elementary campus with 3 sections of space or 1 campus and 3 buildings for grades PK5, allowing for a variety of grade level configurations. At that time, no properties were identified. Once the board voted to allow Dr. Gibbs to begin looking at potential sites, the one that seemed the most suitable was an offering of the space on the Ridges by the university. Now, being free certainly made that a much easier decision. There have been discussions about exploring partnerships with Ohio University and Athens City Schools, and we'll see how that might develop over time. And in case you're wondering where this land is, you can drive up to Carriage Hill Apartments, and that's off of Richland, and once you pass the small playground on the right hand side, you can kind of park your car and go through some grass, and you'll see this open field that's on the right hand side. Part of the rationale for individuals going with the campus option was the belief that if there were 2 K-5 buildings, there would eventually be a school deemed better than others, and we'd end up with similar issues to what we have now, including buildings segregated along the lines of poverty and special education and special services. Some board members brought up organizing students by grade level or having 2 or 3 PK5 buildings at the location. The architect said that cost to have 3 buildings rather than 2 was a difference in $4 million. In what has been shared with me, $4 million equates to roughly $12 on a $100,000 valuation of a home. One major community concern is the size of our buildings. If we run sort of quick numbers, we have about 1,200 students from kindergarten through 5th grade. Our PK program fluctuates throughout the year, but if we estimate about 100 or so, we have about 1,300 students. And I'm going to touch on a little bit about the pre-K here in just a minute. So our 1,300 students divided between 2 buildings, that's 650 students per school, And if we had 3 buildings, it'd be about 433 or so students per building, which is pretty close to our current buildings at the Plains, East, and Morrison-Gordon. And I'm going to go a little bit out of the meeting order here just to stay on building size, but one board member was very clear that they wanted to keep the enrollment of each building very similar to what we have now, and also that the K-5 buildings were more preferable for this person because it limited the transitions. Another board member remarked that they believed a small school feel could be achieved in these buildings. Conversations involved talking through various grade level configurations, and the architect is going to consider that in his preliminary work. One thing, at least on the surface, that is appealing to some people is that the campus gives flexibility. So as a board member mentioned, if a configuration just didn't fit or needed to be changed, the schools could easily just reconfigure. The one challenge that the architect mentioned is that the PK and K, our preschool and our kindergarten classrooms, need to have bathrooms in their rooms. And if we build just for a grade level configuration, we wouldn't have that if we decided to go to a K-5 building sort of structure. Dr. Gibbs mentioned that he wants to have more pre-K rooms. And even remarked along the lines that the early learning is the single best investment to raise at-risk kids. We could very well see that we'll have a larger pre-K program here in the near future, and we may be moving from the half-day preschool to a full day. And so that needs to be taken in consideration when building or renovating spaces. And people clapped for Dr. Gibbs after he said this. I don't know if you've been at a lot of board meetings, but clapping during them, outside of the public participation parts, it really doesn't happen. I've been to nearly every board meeting for a good while, and this is pretty darn rare. A board member asked what other districts were currently doing, and the engineer mentioned several projects that they've been involved with. One district recently has 5 elementary schools, and they decided to have 3 buildings on a campus and then 2 elsewhere throughout the community. The architect also mentioned that there was another district that they recently built 2 elementaries on a single campus. At the end of the meeting, Dr. Gibbs shared a little bit about the issues with the heating and cooling in our buildings. Morrison-Gordon has insufficient air circulation, and it's running on an original system that was installed in 1979. And he has a very valid concern that this unit can go out at any time. Most of our buildings require a replacement of these systems. Though this wasn't mentioned at the meeting, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but the district recently has been spending a lot of money replacing compressors for buildings. So in the last year, we've replaced 2 at East, 2 at Chansey, and 1 is currently on order for West. These cost $25,000 to $30,000 each. The district has about $1 million set aside for service and repair, and the superintendent has a $200,000 discretionary fund, and we have a $1 million rainy day fund. So in the last year, somewhere between $125,000 and $150,000 has been spent on these compressor units. And it's a matter of when, not if, Morrison-Gordon's ceiling-mounted heat pumps go out. And that's going to cost a few $1 million, which will eat up the entire service and repair budget and the rainy day fund in what will probably be a very rainy day. Every dollar we spend on things like this is a dollar that's not going to improving education for our kids. So that's about it. The school board didn't vote on this campus option yet. The architect is going to draft some plans and get some costs to provide the board with. The upcoming discussions are going to be what to do with the high school, the middle school, which is including this $1 million to renovate it to a warm, safe, and dry, and then looking at where the 6th grade may or may not go, and then considering and discussing again in public the plans for a potential elementary campus. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this or any other issues regarding Athens City Schools. You can email me, you can send a Facebook message, you could write a note to be sent by carrier pigeon, whatever. I would love to hear from you. And please like and share this video if you found it helpful, and follow me on Facebook or Twitter. So again, I'm Sean Parsons, and I would love to have your vote for Athens City School Board on November 7th.